Now, the problem here is, number one, that's going to be viewed as very bullish for risk assets in the
Yeah.
near term until we slip into a recession. And the market and all the investors out there, they look around and they say, okay, Fed, we're in a recession. Come get us out of this now. And the Fed's going to say, well, it's not a depression yet, so we're not going to, with inflation still at 4, 5, 6%, we are not going to print, and that's going to freak the markets out. The market
Yeah.
is so addicted to knowing that the Fed is like the parents, right? And they have this little kid, and they, the kid falls, and the parents kind of just catch them. But at some point, the Fed is going to be hand-tied here, handcuffed, and I think that point is coming late this year, early next year. Today is definitely on a technical basis not a great situation. Now, I will give Bitcoin credit, right? We've seen the dollar continue to ratchet up day after day after day, and Bitcoin was just going sideways. So you could actually say, okay, Bitcoin was holding up. But I look at today's up move in the dollar as potentially the straw that broke the camel's back with Bitcoin. It's just so much pressure from a rising dollar and risk assets. I mean, we've seen the stock market rolling over, and Bitcoin for the last 10 days or so has just gone sideways. So it was almost inevitable if the dollar was going to keep going up, that at some point we were going to break down here. And you could see a nasty red candle here. Now we do have potential support coming in around 17.5. That's going to be a big level. That's the June low. But my guess is that could be where we're headed at this point. But again, I was optimistic the last few days, looking at Bitcoin holding up and holding up for multiple days. And today's kind of like the wind coming out of the sails, if you will. So I do think there's a chance of a flush. And I think the key here is understanding there's a few different things that are mixing. Now, if we take out the 17.5-ish low here, there's not a lot of support until you get down to 13 to 12,000, which is my high-end target for Bitcoin. And the kicker here is we have to remember there's still 150,000 Bitcoin, I think, that from Mt. Gox that could be unloaded at any one time. That's a lot of Bitcoin, especially when you're at these lower prices for pressure. In addition, I think you have to be very aware that at some point we're going to get news from the judge in the Ripple case. How is Gary Gensler going to say that, all these other coins are securities? What rules do they have to kind of abide by? And I think all of these combined with a strong dollar leave Bitcoin and other cryptos very vulnerable to a kind of one of those bigger quick flushes that could take us down to that level. So I do think that level is a huge bounce opportunity. I don't know if we'll get there before we get down to, we get the Fed coming in here in late September, but I think it is a possibility. So I think there's still that potential that you could see some upside in Ethereum in the near term. And interestingly enough, the chart has a potential breakout here just above this downsloping trend line. So you can see that and by the way, this is really interesting because what we've seen in Bitcoin is that the low from basically 10 days ago was already breached. But you can clearly see that Ethereum has actually moved above this trend line and is well off of these lows. So to me, I look at that as a short-term relative strength indicator versus Bitcoin specifically. So I think that, again, there's a lot of hype. I think what Ethereum is doing is awesome. I think it's the right move here. And I think ultimately that in the near term, you could see some price pressure to the upside, maybe even retesting the near highs here of 2,000 on Ethereum. But again, I would just caution and say that depending on the regulation we find out about, that would be a concern. That would be a risk factor that you'd want to be a little careful over the next multiple months holding on to a ton of Ethereum. And again, I'm hopeful that happens because I think crypto has taken so many punches over the last few months. I mean, even what happened with Michael Saylor and the taxes and all that stuff, it's just one more thing that makes people kind of like, oh, what's this crypto? Is it kind of shady? What's going on? So I'm really hopeful this goes smoothly. If it does, you get a short-term relief rally to the upside. Maybe that 2,000 handle would be where it goes. In fact, the 200 moving average is just above that double top high there. So that would also be a general target. Then after that, I think eyes turn back to the general crypto market, to regulation, and to overall risk assets. And I think that's where it could be. So you could get this short-term relief, but then just be careful beyond that if the whole risk market starts to come in. If you look at the permeation in crypto of Ethereum and how many things are built on it, I mean, it's essentially the Apple of crypto. Now, I think you look at Bitcoin, and to me, I'm like, okay, Bitcoin is gold, and now Apple or Microsoft would be Ethereum. And I do think there's a lot of upside here down the line. So I am optimistic.
Small ebook, big impact, the wealth tree. The only 4 ways that will make you financially free forever. Download it here for free.